With approximately 3,000 French military personnel operating in French Guiana, Emmanuel Macron reinforced France's strategic role in the region by ordering a diplomatic visit to an isolated area of the Brazilian Amazon, carried out by a French ambassador accompanied by French troops. This gesture not only highlights the French military presence in the Amazon, but also sheds light on the silent challenges of security, sovereignty, and cooperation in one of the most sensitive areas of Brazilian territory. The movement shows how France seeks to consolidate its influence in a geopolitical space of growing relevance. With French Guiana sharing a direct border with Brazil, the French army seeks to establish strategic parity with the Brazilian armed forces, creating a balance in the face of international threats and increasingly unpredictable global dynamics. Furthermore, now in February 2026, the French Navy brought together Brazilian Marines in a NATO exercise held in France, showing that French military planning relies on the support of the Brazilian armed forces in case of an attack. But the question that remains is whether the French forces would support Brazil in the event of an attack on Brazilian territory. Welcome to life in the barracks. The current Brazilian government seems to prioritize strategic military partnerships with some countries over others. Brazilians prioritize military partnerships with the United States, which have historically been close allies of the Brazilian troops, have grown somewhat distant in recent years. This distancing became evident with the cancellation of important joint operations, such as the core exercise and Operation Formosa, both scheduled for 2025. The decision not only interrupted training that strengthened interoperability between the forces, but also signaled a significant shift in Brazil's diplomatic and military orientation. This scenario shows how the relationship between the current Brazilian president and Donald Trump directly impacted the strategic planning of the armed forces.
I want to say something. Have you noticed that President Trump wants to govern the world through Twitter? It's amazing. Every day he says something, and every day the world is still talking about what he said.
The lack of cooperation with the United States, a traditional partner in defense and security missions, could create a technological and strategic gap in the protection of Brazilian territory. Goodbye. At the same time, it raises doubts about Brazil's ability to maintain a balance between its partnerships, since choosing certain allies over others can create weaknesses in areas where American collaboration has always been considered essential. In the face of international threats, with Russia and China forming an extraordinary military coalition, European countries like France have intensified their search for strategic allies in different regions of the world. This movement is not limited to the European continent, but extends to sensitive areas like the Amazon, where the French presence in Guyana already represents a significant military foothold. In this context, the visit of French military personnel, accompanied by an ambassador to a Brazilian army barracks, takes on a much greater significance than just a simple diplomatic agenda. The gesture highlights a calculated move within the geopolitical chessboard, in which France seeks to strengthen ties with Brazil to balance forces in the face of possible attacks or external pressures. Military and diplomatic cooperation in this scenario shows that the defense of national territories cannot be considered in isolation, but rather as part of a network, with alliances capable of responding to increasingly unpredictable global dynamics. This closer relationship between France and Brazil, therefore, signals an attempt to build a containment front against threats that cross borders and challenge the sovereignty of states. However, the lingering question is, if Brazilian territory were invaded, who would actually send help to defend the country? Brazil has always cultivated an image of being a friend to all nations, but by prioritizing some international partnerships and leaving others aside, it runs the risk of compromising its own defense in the event of external aggression. The absence of solid and balanced alliances can become a vulnerable point, especially in a global scenario marked by rising tensions and rapidly reorganizing military coalitions. With increasing Russian pressure on Europe, having Brazil as an ally would be an excellent strategy for NATO. After all, the country has more than 300,000 active military personnel and a reserve of millions of reservists in combat-ready condition, which represents a significant deterrent power. This capability makes Brazil a strategic player in the balance of international forces. But for this to happen, the Brazilian government needs to know how to build its partnerships intelligently, ensuring that, if necessary, there are allies ready to respond in defense of its sovereignty. The Brazilian armed forces have unique expertise in jungle operations, being recognized worldwide as one of the most lethal forces in this type of environment. The Jungle Warfare Training Center in Manaus is an international reference and receives military personnel from several countries who seek specialized training to survive and fight in the extreme conditions of the Amazon rainforest. This capability puts Brazil in a prominent position within Latin America, making it a strategic player in scenarios involving territorial defense in jungle environments. However, this excellence is not repeated in all military areas. Brazil faces significant limitations in aerial and maritime combat, as its fighter jets, frigates, and submarines are outdated compared to the latest generation equipment used by global powers. Despite being a regional power, the country lacks solid alliances that guarantee mutual assistance in case of an invasion of its territory. France has one of the most well-structured armed forces in Europe, with global projection capability through its modern navy, state-of-the-art fighter jets, an experienced foreign legion, and military presence in strategic overseas territories such as French Guiana. The United States, on the other hand, maintains the largest military power in the world, with advanced technology, bases spread across various continents, and a rapid response capability to any international threat. Both countries are pillars of Western security and act as key players in global military coalitions. In this scenario, Brazil should position itself as a strategic partner of both France and the United States, maintaining a sustainable foundation of mutual defense. Cooperation with these powers not only strengthens national sovereignty, but also ensures that, in the event of an international crisis, the country is part of a support network capable of balancing forces. By aligning its expertise in jungle warfare with the air and naval power of these nations, Brazil can consolidate a position of relevance on the geopolitical stage and expand its deterrence capability against external threats. Leave your opinion here in the comments about which country would help Brazil defend itself in case of an invasion. And stay tuned, because soon we will release our strategic analysis so you can become a bold voter and knowledgeable about the backstage of power. Here at Life in the Barracks, you stay up to date with everything happening in the military world. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos appearing on your screen. Forward, soldiers. Until next time.